He was absolutely right. I believe that is a strong moral obligation. And it is something we can most effectively do when we stand together. One of the great stories of liberal democracy has been the expansion of human rights to an ever wider group of people, to commoners and not just the nobility, to workers and not just landowners, to ethnic and religious minorities, to women, to LGBTQ2 people. We have all prospered as a result. Our societies and our economies are stronger when everyone is fully included. Building a successful, diverse society is rewarding, but it is also challenging. One reason Canadians are broadly supportive of our multicultural country and our high levels of immigration is that they are confident we control our own borders, that it is our own country's choice who becomes a new Canadian. So we are very sympathetic to the acute challenge Germany, and indeed all of Europe, has faced as a result of the Syrian refugee crisis. Canada believes this is a global issue, not a regional one or a European one. That is why, as one of our first decisions in government, we chose to welcome to Canada more than 50,000 Syrian refugees. Many of these new Canadians, are already setting up businesses and creating jobs for their neighbors, not to mention learning how to skate. But we recognize that the challenge Germany faces following your country's generous decision to welcome more than 1 million Syrian refugees is much, much greater than our own. In addition to expressing my admiration for Germany's hospitality, perhaps you will allow me to share a supportive message. It is this: today, more stridently perhaps than at any time since the 1930s, there are those in our Western societies who argue that ethnic tribalism is humanity's destiny, that we can only live peacefully alongside those who share our religion, our skin color, our ancestry, our mother tongue. As a counter-argument, let me offer the example of the city I have the honor of representing as an MP, Toronto, where more than half of the population was born outside of Canada, and fully 3/4 of the population is either born outside Canada or born to parents who were born outside Canada. And I hope you'll allow me to boast about my city. Toronto works. Diversity can be a tremendous strength, and I think my city is living proof of that. The multilateral order arose from the chaos and rubble of 2 world wars. It was built on shared values and standards, a commitment to pluralism, human rights, and the rule of law, and the collective pursuit of a better, safer, more just, and more prosperous world. 70 years later, it's not unreasonable to ask if the wisdom behind this multilateral order is still relevant today. I'm certain that it is, and for some new reasons. Today, China produces nearly 20% of the world's GDP, and in our lifetimes, its economy is set to become the world's largest. The US economy stands at just under 1/4 of the world's. Together, the EU, Canada, and Japan account for just a little bit more. The rise of the rest has been a chapter in the story of our own increased prosperity, and it's only natural that the 85% of people who live outside the rich industrialized West should, over time, account for a greater and growing share of the world's wealth. That is not necessarily a bad thing, but the shift leaves the traditional powers with a dilemma. How shall we behave in a world we no longer dominate? One answer is to give up on the rules-based multilateral order, to give up on the Western Transatlantic Alliance, and to seek to survive in a Metronichian world, defined not by common values, mutually agreed upon rules, and shared prosperity, but rather by a ruthless struggle between great powers governed solely by narrow, short-term, and mercantilist pursuit of self-interest. Canada is the world's 10th largest economy, but we know we could never thrive in such a system. Nor, I think, you would agree, would you? The far wiser path and the more enduring choice is to reform and renew the multilateral order that we have built together. And in doing so, to require that all states, whether democratic or not, whether large or small, play by common rules. This is the difficult truth. As the West's relative might inevitably declines, now is the time when, more than ever, we must set aside the idea that might is right. Now is the time for us to plant our flag on liberal democracy and the rules-based international order, so that the rising powers are induced to play by these rules too, and so that their people may be able to thrive and be free as ours are. Canada strongly believes, as Heiko argued in Handelsblatt last week, that it is not enough just to complain about the destruction of the multilateral order. We have to fight for it. We recognize that this is a hugely challenging task, but already working together and we are learning how to take the lead and get things done in this new, more uncertain world. That is why, as a final, small, but encouraging example, let me tell you the story of the White Helmets. Heiko and I were together at the NATO summit in Brussels last month. You may have heard about it. It was quite interesting. There, over supper, as Croatia and England played their World Cup match, Heiko and I realized that we shared a grave concern for the White Helmets. Jeremy Hunt, the freshly appointed UK Foreign Secretary, agreed. And so, Canada, Germany, and the UK are working together with France, the Netherlands, and Sweden, and with essential support from the US, Israel, and Jordan. Together, we were able to rescue more than 400 brave White Helmets and their families and offer them asylum. Now, set against the ongoing tragedy of Syria, that's a small number. But it is always better to light a single candle than to curse the darkness. And that's what we did. We must be energetic, ambitious, and creative in finding more ways to work together, in finding ways for the like-minded liberal democracies to act collectively on our values and to fight for the multilateral order. Heiko spoke about the jungle and animals fighting, and he talked about the pack of liberal democratic multilateralists getting together. We Canadians have a lot of animals we can compare ourselves to, but my Prime Minister's current favorite is the moose. So let me say the Canadian moose is a strong, powerful, a little bit shaggy, but friendly member of this pack of liberal democracies and multilateralists, and we are very, very keen to work together. And then just finally, in conclusion, I want to say, as Heiko did, how much I appreciate the work of my own professional public servants and ambassadors, and how much I appreciate the work of the professional public servants who are gathered here. Now is a time more than ever when in Canada I appreciate the professionalism and the dedication of our own deep state. And it is very wonderful to see so many smart and committed representatives of the deep state from around the world here. And I particularly would like to say how pleased we are to be working with Sabina, Germany's great ambassador to Canada, and to thank my own very beloved colleague, Stefan Dion, who so ably represents us here. So thank you all very much. We have a lot of work to do, and it's been a pleasure to share some thoughts.
folgt nun das traditionelle Familienfoto. Ich wäre Ihnen dankbar, wenn alle diejenigen, die wirklich Leiter und Leiterinnen deutscher Auslandsvertretungen sind, sich vorne an der Treppe versammeln würden zum Foto. Vielen Dank.
Hallo. Zu helfen. Ja, ja, klar.